Shalom lekulam, and welcome to our weekly study in the portion of the Torah. This week's Torah portion is Vayishlach. Vayishlach is in Genesis chapter 32, verse 4, all the way to chapter 36, verse 43. And in this parsha, what we're going to study in today's portion, we're going to dedicate time into studying the meaning of the forces the forces that are behind Yakob and Esav, the forces behind Yakob and Israel, and the forces behind what we call the kings of Edom that reign before the kings who reign and before a king reigned over the children of Israel. So we're going to be talking about that a lot in order for us to understand how these forces of Tumah, these forces of impurity, actually have a part in creation and will help us do our job or work of correction, and how we need to correct these forces. There's going to be an interesting study of the names of these kings and their sons, and how this is actually related to what we call the system of the Kabbalistic explanation of what happened before the book of creation, before the book of Genesis, before the book of the Genesis account. And so stay with us so we can start learning and understand the hidden meanings behind this portion of the Torah this week. So I'll see you in a few. Welcome back. Like we mentioned before in the introduction, Vayishlach, the portion for this week, is located in Genesis chapter 32, verse 4 to chapter 36, verse 43. And as always, we're going to go and do a recap of what really the Parsha talks about, so we can have everything within the context of or study within the context of the Parsha itself. So what it's happening in this Parsha is that Yakob is returning to the land of his father after 20 years stayed in Haran, and he sends what is called angels of emissaries to Esav in order to somehow get some reconciliation with Esav, or make the judgment of Esav somehow passive. After this, we're gonna see that his brother is armed with 400 men, and Yakob basically is preparing to have a war with his brother. But what Yakob does is he sends gift and gift of livestock and a lot of other stuff in order to appease his brother's wrath, appease this side of judgment in Esav. Then we're gonna see that in the river Yabok, we're gonna see that Yakob fights against what we call the angel of Esav, or this guardian angel of Esav, if you will, and he gets his hip dislocated. And this actually, what we're gonna see, has to do with a very sad day within the history of Israel, which is the 9 of Av, and we're gonna see why. Also, something interesting happening within that struggle between the angel and Yakob, and is that Yakob earns basically a new name, which is Israel. Israel meaning Yashar Kel, directly to the Creator. And also Israel means he who prevails over the divine, or the person who wrestles with God and somehow, wins, right? Then when Jacob and Esav meet, they embrace and there's a kiss, but still they part away, right? They don't stay together. And what we're going to see is that Jacob then moves to another land, or within the land of the father, but he purchases a land in Shechem. And in there, something happened, and is that the crown prince, whose name is also Shechem, adopts and rapes basically Jacob's daughter Dinah. And we're going to see why Dinah is very important. And that name Dinah, which is related to Din, judgment, is important. Why Dinah was subject to such a treatment from the forces of Tumah, right? Then we have Shimon and Levi avenging what happened to Dinah. However, we're going to see that all these people in this city the males were circumcised. However, after the circumcision, they get killed by Shimon and Levi when they were doing the avenging of Dinah. Then after that, Jacob continues his journey, and we see that one of the matriarchs, Rachel, she dies giving birth to Benjamin. And it says that the grave was in a roadside, basically a roadside grave near Bethlehem. Bethlehem is a house of bread, so there's a meaning there for the future, what we call the future of Mashiach, or the future of that force that we call Mashiach to develop more. And from Bethlehem, we're going to see also, a king that is going to come from there and all that. Then we're going to see Reuben, the first son, losing the birthright because of what he does to Jacob's couch, basically. Interference, with his father's marital life. And also, Jacob arrives into Hebron, and where Isaac, who later died at the age of 180. But before that, we're going to see that Rebecca also has passed away before the arrival of Jacob. And we're going to talk about that, and because that's one of the things that the reason why Jacob was kind of afraid of Esav, right? In the sense that Jacob knew that Esav somehow has some kind of merit. And that merit was that Esav was doing the commandment of honoring your father and your mother, even though it wasn't given yet, in the form of the Ten Commandments of the tablets, but it was already something that the patriarchs were teaching their children. So in the future, this will be something that will become very important, and we're gonna see why. Then we're gonna see that the Parsha concludes with an account of Esau's wife, the children and grandchildren, the family history of Seir, where Esau actually lived and settled, and the list of 8 kings who ruled Edom, the land of Esau and Seir's descendants, and how these kings, the 8 kings, are important, at least for the Kabbalists when we study this, because this has to do with what it is explained to us. And when we read the Arizal, when we read the Zohar, we're gonna see that they talk about 8 kings that die, and that basically has to do with the Shevirat HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels. Okay, and then the correction that needs to be made, and that correction starts then with something that we call the world of Atzilut, and eventually we're gonna see then the account of creation. But then you're gonna ask yourself why they're mentioning 8 kings after in Genesis, but at the very almost end of Genesis. And the thing is, that as we see these things are gonna make sense why they're mentioned this way, because like I have mentioned before, Kabbalah is like a fractal. The small parts contains all the big parts. The big parts contains all the other bigger parts. They are contained. So whatever happens above somehow has a mirror below, and that's how we know, how certain things actually work in spirituality. And others we're still discovering, because Kabbalah is about that, about discovering. Not everything is written, not everything is discovered. We get what we call revelations constantly through the Tzaddikim, who are the ones that reveal to us new things that they actually get permission to reveal to us as well from heaven, as it is said. Okay, so with this, let's study the Parsha so we can delve into it a little bit deeper. And let's start chapter 32, verse 4, where it says, "Then Yakob sent angels ahead of him to Esav, his brother, to the land of Seir, the field of Edom." And the word Lifanav basically, we read, we're gonna see is before him, basically, according to the Zohar and according to Rabbi Yakob Haseira's interpretation, is that Yakob was an example of the covenant that is described, as a Brit, the covenant of the circumcision, and his bed was basically pure, considered pure, and he merited basically for his children to be called tzaddikim, righteous people as well. And when he says Yaakov sent angels, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim, Yaakov sent angels, Yaakov sent the angels of Hashem, of the Creator, as his messengers. And it says here, how did Yaakov achieve such a level that angels serve him? The answer is in ahead of him, Lifanav, because they were protecting the sign of the Brit, which is the covenant of the circumcision. And Yaakov achieved this level. So then they go trying to explain, how Yaakov Hasid then jumps to explain passage in the Talmud in Chulin 91b, in which he talks about some of about the meaning of the dust that was lifted from the ground, why it is not written as the word afar, instead if be'at fair or be'abek, actually, and that's the word be'yabek. That's the word used in order to talk about a man's struggle, be'abek, with him, which describes a struggle between Yakob and the angel of Esav. That means that the dust from the ground rose up, and be'abek is related to the word abak, which is dirt. And be'abek is vav yod aleph bet kuf, and the word abak, dirt, is aleph bet kuf. Okay, so it says here that let's go to chapter 32, verse 10. Yaakov said, "God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Hashem, who said to me, return to your land, to your birthplace, and I will do good with you." It says here that when Yaakov is doing this prayer, he's mentioning the name Yod He Vav He. For example, it says, Ve'omer Yaakov El Chai Abi Abraham Ve'el Chai Abi Yitzchak Yod He Vav He Haomer Eli Shuv La'eretzchecha, and basically say, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, and then Yohevavhe. He says, why the name Yohevavhe is in this phrase? Why he has to mention that name? And it's the following: God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, basically means the following. The name Isaac has the numerical value of the name Yohevavhe multiplied by 8, which is 208. So we have the number 8 times Yohevavhe. Yakob equals the name Yohevavhe multiplied by 7, which is 182. Then in the future we're going to see that Yakob, Jacob's son Joseph, equals the name of Yohevavhe multiplied by 6, which is 156. And the reason is that this was intentional, because the Creator wanted somehow for his name to be among the or Yakob, to be Yakob and Jacob's son to be among the holy people of the earth, because of they cleave basically to his name, and they also have included within themselves the names of the Creator. Okay, so let's stop right here with Rabbi Yaakov Haseira, because Rabbi Yaakov Haseira now jumps into the meeting of Esav and Yaakov, when he says, and Esav raised his eyes and saw the women and children. He asked, "Who are these to you?" He, Yaakov, answered, "The children who God had graciously given your servant." And before we go there, and we talk about that questions, who are these? Mi ele lach, that words right there. Let's go to what Ramchal has to say, because he will help us understand a little what's going on with Jacob's angels when he sends the angels. So it says that according to Ramchal, what we see is that Yaakov was about to confront his brothers, so he sends angels before him. But Esav, and before doing so, he wished to empower the forces of evil, which is what Esav represents. And this means basically forcing, when you fight, when you do coercion, basically requires forcing something to submission in their place that they're ruling. Esav ruled over Seir, and as the passage says, it says that I have given to Esav the mountain of Seir to inherit it. And Yaakov therefore sent these angels that are rooted in Geburah as a strength, in the hope of defeating the forces of Esav. Now, Yaakov referred to Esav as my master, implying that Esav was not completely a bad person. He has some positive characteristic, and because he was a son of Isaac, right? Also, Esav has some merits because he performed the mitzvah of honoring your father and your mother, right? Kavod av ve'im. Certainly, that's something that it's counted on his favor. So Yaakov was kind of like afraid of that part, because that merit is important, because that was something that Yaakov wasn't able to do because he needed to leave the land of his father, right? So what Yaakov was doing when he called Esav as his master was basically subjugating himself to the good aspect of Yaakov, to that aspect, that is good, the positive side of Esav. And that's why he says to Esav, "Im Lavan Garati, I have sojourned with Lavan." And he says, that Garati has the same letters as 613, which is Tav, Resh, Yod, and Gimel. And what is saying basically, as he was in the house of Laban, he was still maintaining and safeguarding 613 mitzvahs, 613 corrections, right? And vessels or desires that we need to correct. And what does this mean? It means that Yaakov and Esau were both in this world to rectify certain aspects of creation. Yaakov needed to rectify the aspect of Kedusha, and Esau was to battle the Tumah, the side of impurity, and bring the Sitra Achra into submission, the other side, right, into submission. But Esav, instead of doing that, chose to ignore his work, and Yaakov has to actually take over that task by doing what? By going to the house of Laban and being a gerati, like a stranger, in there. This was what Yaakov was trying to say, when he says, im Laban gerati. Do not think that because of you, Esav, I did not accomplish a purpose that is not carried out, or the purpose of correcting these forces, And I went over there and I basically sweetened the left side with Kedusha. So he brought Kedusha to this place where there was basically nothing pure. Now, as we know, Yaakov was kind of afraid of Esau, because Esau was with 400 men, and these were mighty men, right? So it says that Yaakov makes a prayer, and it says, "Rescue me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him." And it says here, once again, that it was because he knew that Esau somehow had the merit of honoring father and mother, while Jacob didn't do it. And when he says my brother, it means that save me from the hand of my brother, save me from the hand of this force of evil that comes from the same family, from the same father, and is an aspect of what we call kivud av. If you were outstanding. Yaakov also feared Esau's additional merit of having been circumcised as well, and that's something that basically we're gonna see later why the circumcision is very important. That brit. And this is the reason why he says, for I fear him, asking the Creator basically to save him from this side of Esau being, basically a judgment and all that. And then he says, and you have said, I will surely do good with you, and I will make your offspring like the sand of the sea, which is too numerous to be counted. Hashem promised, Yaakov this when we were in Parsha Vayishlach, your offspring shall be as the dust of the earth. And the thing is, why then did Yaakov state that Hashem had promised him that his offspring will be like the sand of the sea? Would it not expect Yaakov, the pillar of truth, as the passage states, grant truth to Yaakov? That's from Micah, chapter 7:2. Basically, why he didn't speak more accurate. And is that the reference here is not promise given to Yaakov himself, but the blessing given to Abraham and his offspring, be like the sand of the sea. Yitzhak turned and blessed, Yaakov, and he says, may Hashem grant you the blessing of Abraham. This is from Bereshit 28, chapter 4, Genesis 28:4. And Yaakov was basically speaking the truth because he was referring to the blessing given by Yitzhak according to and related to the blessing of Abraham. And why, it says, also there's a question here, has another question, why there was a need for Yaakov to change this and refer to the blessing as the son of the sea is because it was in order to control the power of Esav. Yaakov needed a blessing to be like the son of the sea, the son which limits the power of the sea from entering the land, right? Yaakov prayed that this characteristic of the son of the sea will be aroused, allow him to contain the power of Esav. So that's so then it says that later the Torah describes Yaakov's battle with the angel serving as a spiritual minister of Esav. And it says, a man wrestled with him. This is on Genesis 32, verse 25, Bereshit 32, 25. What is the significance of Yabek, which we mentioned before that Yaakov Kaseda was talking about? And the Ramchal also says, that the word Yabek contains the word abak, which is thus signifying that during their battle, Yaakov and the angel kicked up dust, which rose to the heavenly throne, which the throne is Bina, right? On a deeper level, the numerical value of Abak is 103, which is, Joyce explained, corresponds to 103 lights of Kedusha, which the forces of Tumah attempt to nourish from. The angel of Esav, realizing that Yaakov sent Menucha in an attempt to remove the force, and Menucha means the gifts and the good things that he sent to Esav, in order to remove the forces of impurity from nourishing from these 103 lights, arm itself with his own 103 forces and make war or fight with Jacob to control these lights. Then he says, by stating that their Abak rose to the heavenly throne, this is referring to the battle over 103 spiritual lights. This battle was being waged not only down below, but in the upper world as well, reaching to the heavenly throne. So it says that Yaakov, without hesitation, was sending tributes to Esav, right? Menucha, his brother Esav. And the Menucha, whose numerical value is 103, the word Menucha, which is Men Nun Het Hei, is served to counteract the forces of impurity that nourishes from 103 spiritual lights of holiness. And that's what the battle is all about. It says here that many times when there is a prosecution against the Bnei Israel in the heavenly realms, we send a tribute to the Satan in order that he should be pacified and preoccupied. This is the secret to the goat that we send out to the wilderness on Yom Kippur. So we make note of that. Then it says about this battle, that therefore the children of Israel are not to eat the displaced sinew on the ball of the thigh bone to this day, because he struck the ball of Yaakov's thigh bone and displaced the sinew. So this is when Jacob's hip gets dislocated during this battle. So the first question that we need to answer is about basically the difficulties. The first is, if the angel struck the thigh bone of Yaakov Avinu, while it is forbidden to eat the sinew from an animal. Second, if the angel struck Yaakov's entire thigh, why is only the gid hanashe, the thin sinew beneath the flesh, forbidden? For the first question, the answer is the animal is the lebush, this basically external garment, what clothes, the spiritual. And just as garments is for the sole purpose of serving man, animals are to fulfill man's needs as well. A blemish caused by any wound in man himself will surely spread to his outer level. Therefore, although the blemish was made in Yaakov, it nevertheless spread to the outer level of the animal as well. For the second question, which is why is only the gid hanashe, the thing seen beneath the flesh, forbidden? It says that the Chazal teaches that the 365 sinews in the body correspond to 365 days of the solar year. One of these sinews, the sinew of the thigh, the Gid Hanashe, is a portion belonging to Satan. For the gematria of the word Satan, and as we have, if we add the kolel, which is adding an additional one for the word itself, for the word Satan itself, is equivalent to the value of 360, which is Hanashe. The word Hanashe, Hey, Nun, Shin, Hey. The one day of the year, which is viewed as the domain of this Satan, is the 9 of Av. And just as we do not eat a portion of the animal in the domain of Satan, or Satan, the Gid Hanashe, we do not eat on the 9 of Av. That's why we fast. The day belonging to Satan, when the spiritual angel of Esav struck Yakob's thigh, he only managed to inflict a wound in the portion that was in his domain, the Gid Hanashe. Therefore, only the Gid Hanashe and not the entire thigh was forbidden. Okay? So, if you want to know more about the 9 of Av, we have some classes in a lesson on the 9 of Av and how the 9 of Av is important in the development of human history, and how this force that gains power during the 9 of Av is important for us to understand, and it's important to us to see why in the 9 of Av so many calamities have happened to the people of Israel around the world, right? And for that, you can go to www.receivingthelight.com. In there, you can go to Parsha and Holidays. At the very bottom of the page, you're going to find the holidays and remembrance part. And in there, go to 9 of Av, and you're going to see the whole lesson. It is a short lesson. It's not an hour or anything like that. But it's a lesson in which I'm showing, how throughout history, the 9 of Av has affected Israel. However, this is part of the process that we call the development of the ego, and also the historical development or the spiritual development that manifests as historical facts in our lives and in our history. Okay, and we're going now. We're now gonna go back to Rabbi Yakob Haseira after we have learned the secrets behind this fight between the angel of Esav and the angel of, basically Yakob, and why Yakob also is called Israel. There's also something here. I'm gonna break away from Rabbi Yakob Haseira and Ramchal. And in Kabbalah, we say that when Yakob, before the struggle with the angel, Yakob was named Yaakov. However, after the struggle, Yaakov was named Israel. Yaakov, the name Yaakov, implies a state of katnut. And the name Israel implies a state of gadlut. What is katnut and what is gadlut? Katnut, Yaakov, is a state in which the vessels are basically in a state like Katnut means, smallness, small. So it's in a state in which it's only using the vessels of bestowal. It's more like even though there's some desires, the desires are basically desires that are not egoistic at that moment. Now, when it comes to Israel, the person that struggle with the Creator and prevail, is in a state of gadlut, and now you're including vessels of bestowal together with vessels of receiving, and these vessels of receiving are gonna be working together with the vessels of bestowal. and gonna transform. We're supposed to transform the ego to the point that you become Israel or Yashar Kel, directly to El, directly to the Creator. And that's the secret behind what happened before the struggle and what happened after the struggle. Yakob, state of Gatnut, and Israel is a state of Gatlut. And Jacob's meeting with Esav is actually, like I mentioned before, all these stories and everything has to do with internal forces within ourselves as well. This is not only forces that are spiritual and out there, if you want to call it out there. It's nothing out there, nothing inside. But this, using our perspective here in the physical reality, let's say these are forces that are within ourselves. These are forces that we have to deal with within ourselves. We have a force called Esav. And Yaakov is a force that needs to correct both sides, the sides of Kedusha and the side of Tumah. And by doing that, he needs to encounter with this force called Esav, okay? And it's very important to understand that. So now let's talk about the meeting. Esav, raised his eyes and saw the woman and children. He asked, who are those to you? Yaakov answered, the children whom God has graciously given your servant. And the question that Esav asked Yaakov is, Mi elelach, who are these to you? Basically, it's like asking, so you took so many wives, for your own pleasure. The word lach implies, for your own pleasure, it was for you, not for the sake of the Creator or anything like that. So you have all these things, egoistically. And the mi-ele, the word mi-ele in itself, it has also a certain meaning that we're going to see, because mi has to do with Bina and ele has to do with gods. And when I say gods, it's the idolatry part. So basically, mi-ele lach, these are basically the idolatrous behavior that you have. All these people are the result of that you are an idolater now, and you're disconnected from me, which is Bina. So we're gonna see this. So Yaakov answered, the children who God has graciously given to your servant. Yaakov responded, it's not what you think. These are the children whom God has graciously given to your servant. In other words, my children are formed with God's holiness and are thus considered to be children of God. And the idea is also expressed in Isaiah, Yeshayahu, chapter 8:18, where he says, the children whom God has given me. Also, Isaiah explained, that Hashem said to Abraham, go for yourself, lech lecha, is the same letters used here for mi elelach, to the language I will show you in a similar manner. This is lach, means basically to you, come out to you, lech, move, lecha, from yourself. And here, Yaakov, you have acquired this for yourself, by yourself. Basically, there's no holiness in this. That's what Yaakov is trying to imply. But the words mi ele is comprised of the same letters of the name Elohim. And when the circumcision, we have mentioned before that Yaakov is considered a tzaddik because he was guarding, or he kept the brit. When a person, a tzaddik, keeps the brit, it's a bnei Elohim, right, a son of God. But when the brit is blemished, these letters become divided and they become mi ele. Who are these? And this is a blemish, basically. It's mi is bina, and ele means strange gods, idolatry, basically. And this is, we're going to see also in the future in Exodus, in which when the Bnei Israel make the golden calf, they call, Elohim, these are your God, this is your God, right? So who are these to you? Mi Elech. Perhaps, says here, because the breath through which these children were created is blemished, and therefore the letters the Hashem are divided. This is putting some kind of like a way to explain this. Rabbi Yakob has said, like if it was a conversation between them in this way. Basically, Esav saying perhaps the breath, the covenant, the circumcision through which these children were created is blemished, and therefore the letters of Elohim are divided, and they were created by idolatry and not by following the path of the Creator, path of God. And Yakob answered, the children who God had graciously given your servant. Basically, God forbid. There is no division whatsoever. Rather, these are the children whom God has graciously given, and the name of Hashem stands united. And he Esav asked, what is all this encampment of yours that I have met? He Yaakov answered, to gain favor in my Lord's eyes, my master. You remember he called him my master. Esav said, I have plenty, my brother. Let what is yours remain yours. And Yaakov said, no, I beg you. If I have found favor in your eyes, then accept my gift from me. For this reason I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of a divine angel. And a divine angel, and you were at peace by me. I'm trying to review the Hebrew to see if I can write the Elohim. Because the thing says, have seen the face of a divine angel, but when you really look at the Hebrew, it says, B'nai Elohim, like the face of God, right? So it's Rabbi Yaakov Haseda says that in Bereshit Rabbah 78:11 says that the angel Michael, along with all the groups of angels, approached Esav men and said to another, strike them and kill them. Esav men protested, but he is the son of Isaac. Then the angel said, pay no attention, just strike them. The men protested again, but he's the son of Abraham. The angel said, pay no attention to that, just strike. Esau's men protested, but he's the brother of Yakob. With that, the angels were at peace and said, if so, then you are ours. According to this, Esav and his men were safe only because of Yakob. Esav, however, was very haughty and paid no attention to this. He thought to himself, Samael is my angel, and he is greater and loftier than all the other heavenly angels. He wished to blunt Jacob's teeth and show him not to take pride in the groups of angels that wish to strike his people. It's very interesting here. This is the Midrash basically. The angel Michael, along with other groups of angels, approached Esav men and said to one another, strike them. So it's like Michael saying, strike them, kill them, but it's very interesting. It's a way to test where these people's heart were. And let's go back to the verse when Esav asked, what is all the encampment that I have met? And the encampment refers to these angels, this group of angels. And why did these angels basically came to me? That's what he's asking there. And Jacob answered, to gain favor in my Lord's eyes. It was to show that I have divine assistance, and therefore I should find favor in your eyes, and you should not think badly of me. And Jacob said, but I have plenty, right? Basically, my angel Samael is greater than all the other angels, And then he says, my brother, let what is yours remain yours. He's basically saying, I'm not concerned what you have because I have plenty. I have Samael as my guard. And Yaakov said, no, I beg you, I have found favor. If I have found favor in your eyes, then accept my gift from me. My intent is only to find favor in your eyes, to be at peace with you. It is I who am not concerned with the plenty that you have, because yesterday he fought against me and I defeated him. So in other words, okay, you think you have plenty with your angel Samael, but I was fighting against him yesterday and I prevailed. So you really don't have plenty, right? For this reason, I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of a divine angel. I say, it says Kirat Penei Elohim. It's more like the face of God. The divine angel refers to Samael, is of angels. Is of angel, is of basically what we call minister. If you were appeased by me, since I defeated it, you had no choice but to be appeased by me and accept my gift. My intention is to truly at peace with you, not to coexist out of fear for each other. Okay? And now let's go to chapter 33, verse 12 to 14, when it says, and he, Esav, said, travel on, and let us go, and I will proceed along you. But he, Yakob, said to him, my Lord knows that the children are tender, and the sheep and cattle are upon me. If they will be driven hard for a single day, then all the flocks will die. Let my Lord go ahead, and his servant, and I will make my way at my slow pace, according to the gate of the drove that is before me, and the gate of the children, until I shall come to my Lord at Seir. So travel and let us go. Basically, when Esav said, travel and let us go, and what he's saying is basically that Esav has taken this word as his portion, and he says, in this portion is truly mine. This word is mine, and instead, let's reach an agreement and forget about the old agreement in which you cheated me and I wanted to kill you. Let's start over, but this time let us travel together, each of us as equal, and share this well. And then says, and I will proceed along you, meaning regarding the next world, which has been designated only to Yakob, basically. And it says, and basically, otherwise I have been cheated in our original agreement, and it should be considered null and void. So therefore, let's start over, and we're gonna, enjoy this world, and also I will be with you, in the next world and all that. But Yaakov said to him, my Lord knows that the children are tender. In the Midrash, it says that when Hashem gave the Torah, he will only accept the young children as guarantors, as the verse says, from the mouth of babes and sucklings you have established strength, meaning the Torah. This is from Tehillim, chapter 8, verse 3. The Kabbalists said that the Creator wanted to accept the children as guarantor instead of the father, and they say that when the man sins, the Sitracha removes the spark of holiness from within him, and these sparks don't return to him until the person is dead, right? If he remains evil until he's dead, then these sparks will never be returned. But his young children who are conceived and born in holiness, if they should die while they are still young and have not yet sinned, they have the power to retrieve the sparks of their parents' holiness. For this reason, the other nations are not worthy to receive the Torah, for they have no warrantors, right? No holy children and all that. But Yaakov said, my Lord knows that the children are tender. Basically saying, that the children who are holy, pure, and tender due to their holiness will be the ones accepted by Hashem in the future as warrantors of the Torah. And the sheep and cattle. Sheep refers to the people of Israel when they do the will of the Creator. As the verse says, you are my sheep, the sheep of my pasture. This is from Ezekiel chapter 34, 31. Cattle refers to the Israeli people, from the people of Israel when they failed to do the will of the Creator. As the verse said, hear the prophecy, you cattle of Bashan. This is from Amos chapter 4. Either way, the people are associated with Yakob and will always be known as the children of Israel, Bnei Elohim. And the Torah also is associated with Yakob. As the verse says, the Torah that Moshe commanded to us is a heritage to the congregation of Yaakov. This is from Devarim 33, chapter 4. Yaakov is basically telling Esav in this, the continued existence of the world, which means receiving the Torah, depends on me and my offspring. So basically, I cannot go with you, otherwise, the Torah will not be given to humanity. If they will be driven hard for a day, if the Creator and his ministering angels will drive them hard for a day that is designated for the Torah to be given, the pressure on the Bnei Israel to receive it and pressure the Bnei Israel to receive it, they will never they will refuse it, because there's something important and we learn in Kabbalah is that there's no coercion in spirituality, but if something is coerced, it's nature basically to have something against that. So something goes forward, there's always going to be something against it to try to slow it down. Then all the flocks will die, everyone in the world will die, because there will be no Torah, basically. There will be no light nourishing the world. So it says, let my Lord go ahead of his servant. Yaakov is telling Esav to take whatever he desires from this world, right? And I will make my way at my slow pace. It refers to receiving the Torah, and then the numerical value of it says here of at, which is slow pace. When we say slowly, we say leat, which is lamed, aleph, and teth. Here it's talking about at, which is aleph, teth only, slow pace, and the numerical value of that is 10, referring to the 10 commandments. The yud is added, so it says et, aleph, teth, yod, because the first time the 10 commandments were given, they were blemished because the people made a golden calf, and because it was necessary for Hashem to hold the mountain over their heads and threaten them in order for them to receive the Torah. As a result, the first 10 commandments are symbolized by two separate letters, the aleph and the teth, which is aleph is 1 and the teth is 9. This indicates that the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, became separated from the other 9 commandments when the people said about the golden calf, Ele Elohim, this is your God, right? But when the people accepted the Torah again at Arvos Moab, the 10 commandments became a single unit, which is symbolized by the additional yod in the word ati. So now let's talk about Yakob in the city of Shechem and what happened to Dinah, and also we're going to talk about the sons of Seir and what is the meaning of these names. And if we have time, probably this will take us kind of like another half hour. Yaakov remained whole in the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, upon his arriving from Padam Aram, and he encamped before the city. He bought the parcel of land upon which he pitched his tent from the people of Hamor, and Hamor, it means like a donkey, right? Who was the father of Shechem, for 100 kesitas. He set up an altar there and proclaimed, God, the God of Israel. God, the God of Israel, in Hebrew, is Hillel says El Hai Israel. El Hai Israel. Dinah, daughter of Leah, who she had borne to Yaakov, went out to look over the daughters of the land. Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the region, saw her, took her, lay with her, and afflicted her. And what we're gonna see is that these verses are gonna are basically can be explained the following way. When the Sitra Achra sees an increase of holiness, which means that the Sitra Achra owns power, the own power of the Sitra Achra is diminishing and is getting close to dying, getting erased. It gathers its strength, and then other levels, basically it levels one accusation after another, even for the slightest of infractions, in hopes of finding some way to strike at the holiness and blemish it. God forbid, right? So this is what happened when the people of Israel received the Torah. The entire nation attained a very high level of holiness, and the Sitra Achra then attacked. And the Sitra Achra was almost destroyed because of this holiness that the people of Israel basically achieved at that moment. So it says there, according to Shabbat 146a, this is from the Talmud, the Sitra Achra was almost entirely destroyed, as our sages explained in the verse Shemot 32:16, engraved Harut on the tablets, engraved in the tablets, right? But read it instead, Heirut. Heirut means free. The Jewish people were free from the Yetzer Hara, from the evil inclination, and the angel of death. This is according also to Erubin 54:8 in the Talmud. When the Sitra has saw, that Yakob has achieved this high level now called Israel, they tried to attack. So the easiest way to attack was basically through probably the most weak part of Yakob, which is Dinah. Dinah meaning din, which is judgment, and that judgment basically tend to be what attracts the evil side is. But also, as we're gonna see, or we saw also in previous, or we're gonna see also in Exodus, is that there's gonna be some tribes that have this aspect of Geburah, or of din in them, but they're used in order to protect the rest of the tribes from the aspects of Tumah. So din or Geburah doesn't necessarily mean that it's evil. It's different, if it is corrupted, it is evil. Evil meaning anything that brings separation spiritually is considered a sin or evil, okay? So in chapter 36, verse 20 and 21, these are the sons of Seir, the Horite, who settled in the land: Lotan and Shoval, Sivon and Anan, and Dishon and Etzer and Dishan. These are the chief of the Horite, the descendant of Seir, in the land of Edom. And it says here that, and now we're gonna see, we have Yaakov and his 12th son and his daughter Dinah, who was basically blemished by Shechem. What we're gonna see is that now we're gonna study the other side. Now we're gonna study the side of these forces of Tumah, these forces that bring in the future what we call the breaking of the vessels. Why? Because what we're gonna see is the following, and this is a hint. If you study with us, there's something in Kabbalah for intermediate Kabbalah lesson 6 and 8, in which it is explained the Shevirat HaKelim. And the Shevirat HaKelim is basically when the light goes to these vessels that are not prepared to receive that light, that are basically egoistic vessels, and they're not wide enough to contain all that light. They basically explode, they break. And this is what's happening here. So these forces try to enter through what we call Dinah, enter through Dinah in order to nourish themselves, from that side, and it's a feminine, just like it happened with Hava, right? It's through the feminine that the forces of impurity try to get in. That has nothing to do with feminine sex. This is just, roots and branches, language that Kabbalah uses. And through that feminine, which is an aspect of receiving, is how the forces of evil, forces of Tumah, get through. And in this case, there was basically a deal, that all the males needed to circumcise, meaning that we're going to start dividing then the vessels of bestowal from the vessels of receiving. But then Shimon and Levi come in and kill, meaning they somehow, cut the light from all the vessels of receiving, and basically kill them, remove the light from those vessels that cannot be used in order to bring any light into correction, any light for the correction of humanity. And that's basically what it means. And we're gonna see a lot of words like killing and things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean physical killing. Kill or death in spirituality means departure of the light from the vessel. That's what it means. Okay. So Horai, the word Horai alludes to Haron Av, which is anger, and Lotan. These are the names of these people. The word Lotan is comprised of the same letters as Notel, which is take. It describes a person enticed by the Yetzer Hara to take hold of all the vanities in this world, And so it's anger and taking, basically egoistic. Shoval, it's actually the same letters as levush, and a garment. This person occupies on the vanities of this world. He wears them like a garment, this vanity. Sivon, Sivon has the letters, or is related to the word Sabah, which is tainted. So basically a person is clothed with the Yetzer Hara, is clothed with the ego, and is basically corrupted. Ana denotes affliction. It is not enough for a person to be corrupt, but also the person becomes evil in the sense, that it afflicts other with Lashon Hara and deceit. Dishon, the person basically indulges in physical pleasures. Dishon implies growing fat, growing fat. And etzer means, alludes to the word etzer, that means he fulfilled only his desires. And this one is basically like Dishan. It sounds exactly like the name that we mentioned before, Dishon. This is Dishan, and basically, fulfilling all his desire, growing fatter. This time, it's mentioned again because this time it's growing fatter and fatter. The egoistic desires in the person. And this saw the sheaf of the Horite. And Harai, like we mentioned, Harai means Haron Af, anger, great anger. Basically, saw the descendants of Seir and in the land of Edom. Then he mentions the sons of these different persons that we just mentioned. Lotan, Hori, Heman. Lotan's sister was Timah. And then mentions Lotan, but it mentions a sister. Remember, the 12 tribes also have a sister. It's called Dinah. It mentions here Timnah. And who is Timnah? Why Timnah is mentioned here? Lotan's sister was Timnah. The name Timnah is related to the word monea, withdraw. When a person becomes involved in worldly pleasures, it causes him to withdraw from mitzvah. The sister of Lotan, which is Natel, taking things egoistically from this world, is Timnah, withdrawing from mitzvah. Meaning, as these two things are closely related, one automatically leads to another. So a person that only cares about this world will automatically not care about the next world, will not care about the mitzvah, will not care about corrections or anything like that. And at the end, we're going to see that in chapter 36, verse 28 and 31, he says that these are the kings who reign. And the reason it says, these are the kings who reign over Israel. No. These are the kings who reign in the land of Edom before the kings reign over the children of Israel. This is a secret in Kabbalah, and in the sense, that when you study Kabbalah, you're gonna find that the 8 kings that die have to do with the breaking of the vessels. And for that, you're gonna find it in a book of Zohar, and specifically in the Idrach Rabbah. Well, it details, this situation in which they start what we call, the death of the kings and all that. And then there's a correction that start happening, a rectification. How this rectification is going to happen. For that, make sure you check our lessons in Intermediate Kabbalah. I'm sure I'm putting a graphic there so people can then go to those lessons and see what these 8 kings are all about and what do they really mean, and see that the Torah itself it's a code. It's telling us about things that are happening spiritually. It's not a book of history, as we may see. It uses history, but in there is encoded a lot of valuable information that is spiritual, not historical. So a lot of things might sound like they're exaggerated and that kind of stuff. It's meant to be exaggerated because there's a code behind that exaggeration of that fantastic thing, that happened, like fighting against an angel and things like that. It's like, okay, what does this mean, and then you will understand. So this is all that I have for today. Things that we need to learn about this parsha is the following: is that we need to apply basically the battle or the struggle of Yakob with the angel in our lives, and also the fear that Yakob felt when meeting with Esav. We need to recognize the evil in us, right? And that's basically recognizing that brother Esav. And we need to make sure that when we recognize evil, that what we're going to do is we're going to correct it. But we need to recognize it first that we're evil. And when we correct it, we're going to see that there's a struggle. There's a struggle because we're still not big enough. We're still like babies trying to figure out this world. But we need not to be afraid. We need to continue in this struggle. And eventually, even if it costs us, like it happened with Jacob, and it happened historically, the 9 Av, right? The fight of Jacob, where Satan has power, but we have the power to defeat, right, Satan. And in this way, we will gain and attain the proper level of understanding that when we are meeting with this evil of us called Esav, this twin brother who is dark, we will sweeten these evil forces in a way that they will become part of us and will help us, achieve what we need to do. And we will use what we need to use, and that we cannot correct, somehow is going to get corrected, right? But that we cannot correct, we will continue working until it is corrected. Meaning, we can correct ourselves. Now let's apply it in society. We can correct ourselves. That's all we have right now, and under our control. We can correct ourselves. We have something out there called society, other people that might be doing good things, or might be doing bad things, who knows, right? We're not to judge them. What we need to do is send them angels, send them light. And even those people that we think that are against us, whether at work, whether at social gatherings, whatever environment you're in, you will see that you will not feel afraid because you already know that you can defeat a minister that they've been following and on, which is a minister called Samael, Satan, and all that. But if you send light, if you're struggling with yourself, if you're fighting with yourself, you will find yourself from that state of smallness in which you're trying to figure out the whole world. You're going to find then yourself in a state of gadlut, of greatness, in which now you might not know everything, but you know what it's guiding you. And what is guiding you is the light of the Creator, the Torah, the light that reforms, the direct light that comes from above, the upper light. Right? And that's what we're here for, to bring the upper light down, to receive that upper light and share it with everybody else. And that's why we see that Yakob did not go with Esav, because Esav, all he has is this world. That's it. But Yakob has not only this world, but also the world to come. Okay? So it's a double portion, because Esav didn't do what he was supposed to do, which was, basically fight or correct these forces of the Sitra Achra and the evil inclination. Yaakov needed to do that when he left to Laban. So sometimes it's us, those who are studying, those who are doing spiritual work, that find sometimes the work a little bit harder, and it's because it's upon us to do certain work that other people may not be doing, right? But don't get yourself too proud about it, because then you're doing what you're letting Shechem take Dinah and do what he did to Dinah. When you get too proud of that, because when you achieve a high level, they will find a way to get you. One of those ways is be proud of being a spiritual person and being in a special group of Kabbalists or any other spiritual group, and achieving these high levels of spirituality. I'm so good, better than everybody else. And that's when the Satan got you right there. It got you right there. So learn about that. Learn that this portion of the Torah, what it's telling us is that for every good action that we make, the evil inclination finds itself like a wounded animal and will try to attack in order to survive. And we need to be ready. Okay? So that's all we have. Hope that you have a good week, a good Shabbat, and lots of light and love. Remember to visit us at www.receivingtheupperlight.com. And also, if you want to be a part of connections, basically the prayers on Shabbat and also during the weekdays and all kind of stuff, you can visit www.kabbalah4all.com. That is the word Kabbalah, number four, and the word all.com. Kabbalah4all.com. All right, this is all we have. I'll see you in the next Parsha, which is going to be Vayishlach. And have a good week and Shabbat Shalom.